What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Let's see how the TheNightFox fares against Neblime in the remaining matches in this Axiom set. I hope you guys like Axiom, by the way, because we got a lot of games in it. The TheNightFox, top right as Zerg. Neblime, bottom left as Zerg. And Neblime is going to go ahead and give some advice over for an in-base first hatch. Now, Neblime is a man who is no stranger to Zerg. He has played Zerg in Ascensions in the past. He has also made it all the way to the Grand Finals as Zerg once before switching back to Terran, and now he is Zerg yet again because I made much needed adjustments to the Hurakan, which he was a dirty abuser of, dirty Ahmed abuser, can you believe it? But Neblime has indeed switched over to Zerg now. What we have in general is going to be a ZVZ. Now, ZVZ are, notorious for being very bloodthirsty in StarCraft 1. However, in Cosmonarchy, it's a little bit different. There's a lot more variety of choice that you can do, a lot more depth here. We will even see a very different set of strategies over in this situation where we have a pool first coming out of Neblime. No hatch yet, but presumably one coming for the TheNightFox in a moment. So this could actually be a very fast game, very bloodbathy game. Neblime obviously is sort of our reigning champion from the last tournament. Doesn't necessarily mean he's the best player that is currently actively playing, but it does mean that there is, some fear in your heart if you're going up against him. Another thing that I think is kind of interesting is that Knight is going to go ahead and put his hatch down right below his main. He could do it right by the ramp, and the ramp is going to give him a little bit more height advantage if he needs to put some sort of emergency main defense in. It's probably going to look very weird to most people if you're in the TheNightFox's shoes or you're coming in from a Brood War-centric perspective or something to see a Zerg who's building a hatch in the main and then not leaving behind their ramp and choke, not taking their natural. But one base Zerg can do some things, and you just need to make sure that you're still on top of your worker production. If you go for early Vespene and you want to supplement a pool and some extra production and stuff, you can actually make Larvosks out of the Kagrant. It's essentially a larva-producing creep colony morph, you can think of it as. So just something to keep in mind as it's another option. But it does require a hefty amount of Vespene. There was a Neblime Scout. There he is. He actually brought an offering, a little bit of a gift, housewarming party, knocking on your neighbor's door with some apple pie, and then slipping and falling and putting it right in their face. This is sort of what Neblime was thinking about doing, but decides against actually doing the slipping and fall part, just decides to pop over here and be the Shambler. Yes, that is the Shambler move. We will have a large number of Shambler moves in the future where you take your scouting worker, specifically your worker, and you burrow it. Definitely a good move there. So, the TheNightFox is going to go ahead and get a pair of Zeths, actually 2 pair of Zeths. That's the new name for the Zergling. The Quasis are out here, so that's going to completely negate any run-bys, but you can at least use the Zeths to scout. Quasilisks are very, very good versus Zeths, but if you get Quasis of your own, kind of like PvP when you have like Zealot Dragoon in StarCraft 1, it's very, very similar, in fact. It's kind of similar, except obviously like the Quasilisk is less mobile than the Dracodon and has less range and all this other stuff, obviously less durable. So it's a more bloodbathy version of that kind of idea. If we come on down here, we see that by holding Alt, we can see the intention behind these units, and they are indeed going to get shelled on the way in. TheNightFox actually could have just walked right by. It looks like he will. He comes down here just to see the expansion timing, sees that there are no workers. He's going to spot that the hatch at the ramp is there. He might be able to surmise that there's only going to be 3 hatch in this situation, setting up an expansion of his own. Is he going to be able to hold out versus the counterattack? I mean, we did see a large number of Quasis. It looks like it's going to be 8 total, as well as 2 pairs or 2 Zeths, and it's all Zeths here from the TheNightFox, just trying to commit down the middle of the map here, see if he could do too much, but he's going to end up losing 2 out of his 6, make that 3, and yeah, all the rest of them are just going to go ahead and explode. I was going to say before really taking any fire. He's got some preeminent workers just waiting in line to go ahead and drop the minerals, but I feel like this is going to be a little bit more of a straightforward run over as the hatch is here. I wouldn't be surprised if this, that's going to turn into a Kagrant, and the TheNightFox is going to go ahead and grab some Quasis to defend himself. He has a Circuith over here a little bit further into the main. There's a little bit of pressure put down and applied onto his natural. If you focus on the Zeths, the Quasis struggle a lot more with the armor. So focusing down the Zeths is not a bad idea if you're trying to rely on structures to save you. However, this Circuith being mutated over here is actually going to be hell on earth for the TheNightFox to deal with. He's only got Quasis of his own being made, and at this point it's definitely going to be very, very painful for him. He should probably just evacuate the workers since he's too late to put his own Kagrant down. He might not have even noticed that this was not his, because in the panic he might have thought, oh, I bought that, but not going to cancel that Kagrant, not going to get his worker back. He will lose his natural as a result. We have an Obeleth over here, which might be panicking him even further, thinking that maybe Neblime is going to go ahead and drop him. But that's actually not the case. There's nothing in it. It's just scouting and confirming that, okay, what does Neblime need to bust this? And, he's making the Hydrith Den back at home. That's going to give him access to Armor Pen. That will allow him to bust the circuits up the ramp. And so I think he's going to be in okay shape. He's actually trying to focus down the eggs, which is really funny. And he does end up killing one of them, which is not going to cancel and get the money back. But looks like it's going to be a quasi-duel over here. The hatch will get focused down eventually. And unfortunately, a lot of the DPS is being lost onto the circuit. A little bit of a focus fire now. Will leave Neblime with only one quasi. I say that, but obviously the target change at the very end there, not exactly ideal. Cancels that quasi pair. And now he's still in deep doo-doo for sure, but it's not quite hit him just how soon the pain will come. Neblime going for the closer here, not too interested in extending this game any further. More committal over here. Nice demonstration of armor versus the quasi. Obviously getting reduced pretty heavily here. So if you want to bust something like a Circuit, Hydras are your guys. Or Zeths. Zeth cores can be really good for it. So you can still do that instead. Another round of quasis are going to be moving out their way. He's going to see if he can do a little bit of micro to fall them back. And he will actually be able to do that relatively cleanly. You can do the micro tricks. You can borrow them, obviously, with no structure nearby. You can't really deal with that. So that's another option for you. Unfortunately, though, the TheNightFox is down, 9 workers, obviously down tech. Hydras can be scrambled at pretty much any point. And I said earlier, Neblime isn't interested in extending this game, but it looks like he's going to play a little bit safe, not exactly sure what the TheNightFox might have up his sleeve. When you're a new player, it's hard to know exactly when you're, hopelessly behind. And even then, I would also kind of encourage people to try to, by the way, Biddy B, to try to go for a move where you extend the game long enough to see a little bit more unit interactions, like what we saw with the quasis against that circuit, because it gives you that little bit of extra push that you might need to further your understanding. So what can the TheNightFox do better next time around? I think he can probably send his Zeths out on scouting missions a little bit more elegantly. He can definitely think about maybe using an Ovaleth to transport the Kagrin down for a circuit, because he saw how successful the circuits were to hold off against the quasis when he was trying to attack it himself. And other than that, I mean, he's getting his Hydrith Den, so it's not like he's not hopelessly behind in terms of the tech. He is also drolling up, but he never remade this hatch, so he's behind by 1 hatch. There's another one coming, so he's going to be behind by 2 hatches for a brief period of time. That's if the game even gets that long, because this force can absolutely kill him. And yeah, the TheNightFox is going to go ahead and drop it. Just a K. And maybe some extra typing, not just GG. And Neblime will go up in the set 2-0. Again, we've got a couple other matches to look at, but hopefully this was evocative enough of what you can expect if you are going up against Neblime. He can turn on the aggression. Even then, you saw him give his opponent a little bit of extra rope there. And the TheNightFox, he's still learning the project very heavily. In these tier 1 interactions, they're very important to see in action. And so hopefully you guys appreciated the value of that. We'll go on to another game in this set. All right, we've got Neblime in the top right this time around. Very interesting. We're going to have the TheNightFox in the bottom left. Our white Zerg versus our... Oh, what is this color? It's like salmon. No, it's not salmon. Bronze. Wow. Wow, Neblime. Wow, you're bronze? Who would have guessed? The white fox in the bottom left this time around. Once again, ZVZ. I don't know if Neblime's been rolling random. That would be... probably, I think he would probably say his race if that was the case, so he probably just picked Zerg. And that probably, if I had to guess, that probably means that the last game that we're going to see between these two is Terran, so that could be interesting. We'll see how that shapes up. It's going to be a fast pool for both of our players, so Neblime a little bit ahead on maybe the mineral allocation or something that gave him it, but I think it was around the same timing there. Although TheNightFox does have 1 extra worker, so maybe that's the difference. Very interesting stuff. What's going to be the result of that? Are they just going to both handshake and say, I'm going to get this ZVZ over with? Kind of interesting, though. I inculcated Herbmon to the project very recently, and he has picked up Zerg. Obviously, he's going to be Zerg, or at least he said he was going to be. And so that's what he practiced. I randomed a couple of times and wound up as Zerg for the game that we ended up playing. And then, as a result of all that, he was able to see some of the tech tree options that you can make in Tier 1, and even I got to Tier 2. He decided 900 Vespene was way too much to spend. And then I told him, well, hey, for the record, on 2 bases, I was able to get this. And, little things like that to help him be introduced to the project. And he's a very competent Zerg player in Brood War. So I'm excited to see what he has to say about it, but we might be entering into a world where we just have a lot of Zergs in general. I'm not sure if Art of Turtle is going to be sticking around, but he's also a Zerg player. He'll be debuting pretty soon. Drolith getting exterminated by the rival Quasis, but scouts out that there was 2 pairs, and there are 3 pairs here for Neblime. So a little bit of extra oomph there, although depending on how the engagement goes, we might see things change. More and more Quasis being made. Meanwhile, the TheNightFox going for a natural hatch and now producing additional Quasis, being a little bit more on the defensive. I like this position for the TheNightFox, because when you're in a situation like this where you've decided to go for mirror builds, whoever's playing defensively can win if they hold and also have an economy. Whereas whoever's playing aggressively, the onus is on them to figure things out. Neblime, though, he's going to go ahead and drop a hatch. It looks like he is going to go ahead and take his hatch normally at the natural instead of putting it by the ramp. So not believing in the in-base one this time around. You know, it's been a longer game, so probably wants to think about getting extra resources up, although he's staying behind in workers. This is looking a lot more like a classical Starcraft 1 game. We have Zethicors moving out to scout the right side of the map. They'll probably swoop in and see that the hatch timing is favoring the TheNightFox. I don't know how much Brood War experience this guy has, so it's definitely cool to see him be a little bit more on the competent side. Overall. So we've got 10 versus 10. The first engagement favoring Neblime, but obviously the reinforcement points closer for the TheNightFox, although he doesn't actually have anything over here. So he is losing a little bit of the focus fire fights, but now that the hatch is up, you know, that's obviously going to change things a little bit. We've got 6 Quasis here. 2 of them are going to burrow for healing a little bit faster. The regeneration rate is doubled while burrowed. We're going to have a Circuit defensively placed. The Zets are actually going to come on back. One of them should be able to end up killing that Quasi. That's actually, you know, it's potentially impactful. I don't know where the other one wound up going. Looks like one of these Quasis has a kill, so I guess that's probably what it was. These ones unfortunately rallied over there a little bit slapdash. Here's a worker pull. I like this move. Really, really nice. Manages to even get it before any decollision happens, so there you go. There's a tactic for you, and the Quasis are indeed going to be felled. So, yeah, pretty solid stuff there, getting him baited up the ramp. He has this Kagran he can move with an Ovalith if he wants to a little bit later on. And the worker counts are even, with a 3rd hatch coming for Neblime, so that's a little bit more in terms of emphasis there. And we've got a defensive Kagran setup coming in here for the TheNightFox. Neblime not going to go ahead and spend any of his resources on that, not fearing a move out, maybe reading into his opponent a little bit. Maybe we'll see the static defense be added a little bit later on. But he does have the production advantage forthcoming, so there is that as well. Again, I've said this in a couple of casts, but oh, wow, we actually had the entire worker line be transferred over there to the natural, so that's why this is completely empty right now. But I've said this a few times that you generally, under normal circumstances, we'll take a look at Neblime's base for this, you want to transfer when you reach the worker count on minerals, that is 2 times the number of mineral fields you have. So here we have 8 mineral fields, I believe. We'll double click to make sure. It's actually 9 mineral fields. So in this particular case, you would wait for 18 workers on minerals, and then you could start to transfer, and you would be maintaining maximum efficiency. Just to give people an idea of what to look for if they're, you know, assessing these sorts of things, or if they're actually playing and, you know, trying their best to understand what's going on with the economy. How do I get more out of my bases? That's how you get more. So in this situation, right, we actually have less mineral fields down here, 8 mineral fields down here, so it would only be 16 for the naturals. Something else to point out here. He's actually transferring workers over to the main, so that's an interesting choice by the TheNightFox as he continues to try to hold with just the 1 Circuit. I like that it's just the 1 Circuit. I do think that that's a good move. One thing that I would criticize from both players is that neither player has actually scouted in this situation. Neblime technically has a little bit of, you know, tempo, but he's got less workers, and he's actually going to be at a tech deficit pretty soon, despite having a macro advantage in terms of the time that he's had this base up a little bit, and also the extra hatch. But the extra numbers might not matter too much as long as the TheNightFox continuously produces Quasis. However, we are fast approaching a point where I believe we are going to see a little bit of like a critical mass. There is a hatch going to be put down over there. I was really hoping for the TheNightFox's case that was going to be another Circuit, because at least then there would be a timer before these 22 Quasis could get too much damage dealt. But right now it's 22 to 12. They're going to go ahead and commit forward. They're going to absolutely melt the Quasis. He should focus down the Zets if he can with his own Quasis, or maybe even with the Circuit, because that will leave only the Quasis versus that Circuit. But look, there's enough of them, right? There's 13 here. Quasilisks destroy workers, especially if they are not the Mason. Mason stays alive a little bit more. We are going to see this secondary Circuit be pretty useful over here. Neblime's going to have to come up the ramp and then do something. But the Zorkis has only now finished. We're talking about another, you know, 70 or so seconds maybe before we can see multiple units pop out here. He doesn't actually have Well, he has enough resources that he could have queued up some Lakizilisks, but it looks like he's going to go ahead and panic buy some Quasilisks, and as he tries to resaturate the natural over here in this situation. So still putting out fires, Neblime not taking it easy on him, which is good. You want to learn by, sort of running up into the wall. One Lakizilisk is on the way. The Quaseth pool will indeed be popped up. So in that sense, I actually don't terribly mind that he ended up making a lot of Quasis, because he's not going to be able to for much longer. But they're kind of like a dying breed for the NightFox, a bit of a precious resource. And it looks like Neblime is going to be trading with the express purpose of trying to get rid of that resource. Some more Quasis are down here. He can clean this up and get back to mining from his main. Again, you look at the worker count, it's 30. That's very oversaturated for the natural. Kizil's going to burrow defensively over here. We did see a Hydrith Den come up, as well as the Vornath Pond finish mutating. So Neblime going to try to finish this game in Tier 1, just like the previous. So a pair of ZVZs to grace our screens as we see Neblime try to contend with this player who's doing his best to hold on. And so far in the set, I got to say, again, like, I think NightFox is going to be a very competent player once he understands the tech tree a little bit more, the core mechanics, and, if he can worry a little bit less about understanding, what individual units do, because he just gets that down pat, and that will improve his EPM, because he won't be looking at, like, tooltips and trying to remember what the names of units are and stuff like that. So here's some Lakizilisks. They're going to go ahead and shred this force. I don't know if I need these two back here, but at the end of the day, it's very, very good. Not a single Lakizilisk going to go ahead and die. One of them getting pretty low, but again, you regenerate twice as fast while burrowed. Avaleth going to come over here for some pressure. We've got 4 Nathrakors coming. I think maybe what that run by, or that force, that committal was supposed to do, was actually going to do exactly this, right? Because there's no Quasilisks anywhere, no anti-air units at all. And Nathrakors being the pivot is actually pretty legit. But we do have 5 Quasis coming because the pool was remade. So it won't be like GG completely. You can also burrow to avoid the worker deaths in this situation. And the Quasis are already more than halfway done. It looks like the Nats are initially going to occupy themselves by trying to attack one of those. That feels like a little bit of a mistake. We do have a good number of the Naths. We got 8. Going to be seeing a Spraith be made. And there's a critical number of Nathrakors starting to amass up, but we are going to see a couple of them end up getting popped down. Yeah, as this defensive flank comes in, there's still 4 of them. There's many more being made, but the Spraith is incoming, and so we can see even more and more Quasis come out. Now the Spraith is going to get focused down. This is still dangerous. You are still in squeaky bum time. You need to respect this by building more Spraiths, or more Quasis, many more Quasis. But you can see even these like little tiny amounts of Quasis are still dealing some pretty good trades cost efficiency wise versus the Nats. It's just if they get picked off like Marines coming out of barracks in TVZ StarCraft 1, this is kind of what you would expect versus Mutas or something like that. Similar situation. Again, you can just burrow to avoid the death over here. That would definitely save him a good amount of pain. And behind this, Neblime taking a third base. He's going to go up the tech tree a little bit more, or at least in terms of production. I was thinking maybe he'd go for his ski back by now. Not necessarily. And he's going to go ahead and fly away as the anti-air defenses come up. But he's done a lot of economic damage, and the big thing that he did was get a lot of extra workers. So he's basically fully saturated in the main and natural. I mean, I say that, but he's actually switched over to mass gas harvesting. So could use a little bit more saturation, actually. Going to be 17 Nathrakors. That's going to convince the NightFox to maybe pull out of his base. And, he's taken so much critical damage that maybe he just needs to go where the air units aren't and kind of force them to do things. He's only got a small spattering of, it looks like less than 12 Quasilisks. Got a forward hatch over here. I do like these kinds of positions. Nathrakors are going to get bopped on their way through. Oh, and actually that was an attack move, so that's a little bit sloppy by Neblime. He's going to end up losing a large number of his units. And I'm not sure what the NightFox is thinking, because he's just pulled his units back too, and I wonder if that wasn't a mistake or something. Obviously, his Quasis should be on a move here so that he can do damage to the Nathrakors, which are focusing down and killing all of the Lakizilisks. That's such a heavy amount of resource loss. Again, you can burrow, and then they suddenly become completely impossible to target for air units, unless there's detection in the area. And it looks like maybe he's realizing the error of his ways. You can't A-move. Oh, yes, that's right. If you have lurkers selected, Lakizilis selected, there is a chance where the... it's inconsistent, but if you selected, like, the Lakizilisks last or whatever, like if you box select and they're on, like, the left or the right side or whatever, then the attack button doesn't appear. So that is a bug that we're trying to fix, and we've been trying to fix stuff like that, like little usability stuff like that for a long time, but definitely some jank that people have to work around in the current form of the game. It's still Brood War under the hood, so despite it being very, very different, it's still something worth it pointing out. We got the Iris coming for both of our players, actually. a little bit further ahead for Neblime. I'm surprised that TheNightFox has held out this long in this match. But he's about to get swept in, and there's only one Spraith defending this base, so... Neblime is actually kind of making this look kind of like the Ascension 3 when ZVZ was all Nath, because they did Splash. This is way back, you know, you're talking about more than half a year ago now. So he's going to go ahead and pull back all of his Quasis. Going to go ahead and evacuate the workers again. You know, you can still do this instead of burrow because at least they'll be harvesting for you, right? So there will still be some utility there. Zorka is going to get focused down here, but I think the Quasis are kind of boxing them in because if they go to the right-hand side, they're going to deal with all the Spraiths. So they are going to take some losses. Maybe you try to sick the workers here, but that's a bad shout considering the stream of Quasis that just came through. So really, some mining time was lost, and looks like maybe this third base will go down as a result of there still being 11 Quasis there, or Nathra there. Yeah, that's going to get not canceled. That's unfortunate. A lot of Izira cores here. The Izira cores do have 1 armor, so or 2 armor actually. So they will get the Quasis have 1 armor pen, so they will still be reduced by this. But there's enough Quasis over here that it still feels like the Izira cores need some support here. But maybe they can just go ahead and try to bully them. You can see that sort of thing happening right here. Zoning them back. We got some Hydras out. We do have tier 2 done, but Neblime is actually in a position to use his economy to leverage that more expensive tech, and that is very much not the case for TheNightFox. He does not have as many workers. He has admirably rebuilt considering his situation. And we got 3 o'clock being taken, 12 o'clock being taken at the same time here, and Neblime is going to go ahead and start some Matroleths up. His his Alkag-Eteth is nearly complete. That's going to go for another level. Dude, imagine if he had Almakis at tier 2. That would truly be too powerful. Big swarm of Quasis and Hydras coming out here. Maybe not big, but big enough that maybe he can't finish the game in this moment without needing the extra tech. But I think this extra bit of production is going to be more than enough to sort of tighten the noose, especially if there's not too many Nats that were left over after that skirmish, so that should be kind of interesting. Really trying to set up a third base. Again, very much behind, but still fighting, and still has the idea that he can keep on going. You know, some players would maybe lose some will after losing the workers to the Nats and stuff, or maybe losing all of his units in the middle where he lost his 3 out of 4 Lakizilisks and such. That would definitely be painful for a lot of people. Here's a mistake that I saw Alexander make earlier, making the Skibact when you have the Iroll. The Skibact is tier 1.5, you can get it without needing the Iroll Iris, whereas if you're going to go for a little bit more, nice focus fire there onto the Matroleth, by the way, wanted to point that out. Got a little bit of a flank on the right-hand side, more units there could have made a big difference in this fight. But some Izira cores are coming in, feels a little too late. You know, no Lakizilisks with this army, so the crowd control isn't quite there. So there's a lot of Hydras that are just having free reign. And it looks like this Hatrask is indeed going to get bopped. Not going to get infested because it's not finished. But still, not a bad shout. If this Lakizilisk was up with this fight, maybe that's enough to get a little bit more cost efficiency out of it. I still don't think he'd be able to save the base. He's just been too far behind. But yeah, the Skibact turns into the Tethvith, and the Hydrath turns into the Tethvith. So you can skip that intermediate step if you're at tier 2 already. The reason why you would take the Vornath or the Skibact is if you want to see if you can get some timing advantage in the earlier stages of the game. Maybe you're all inning, maybe you want to finish the game in that moment. By the way, units near the Matroleth have basically apply ensnare on hit. So that's pretty efficient there. We will see the Matroleth probably use Infest on one of these units or something. But that's if it's even required. Trying to make sure that he can get the Vilgalets out. Narrowly ends up escaping. With one more Spraith shot, it would have happened. That's going to be GG yet again. Neblime stretching out to a 3-0 lead. And we'll see if the TheNightFox gets on the board versus in the last match. But that's a little bit longer, so you guys are going to have to wait a little bit longer. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to the TheNightFox for participating against none other than our resident, returning champion, incumbent, the Neblime. We will see what happens in our final game, and, we will watch your career with great interest.